My name is Rod Charles, Chair of the Ontario Travel Media Association Board. I'm here today with Liz Campbell, TMAC board member and also on the Ontario board, and she's the professional development lead. We will be your hosts for this webinar, and we thank you for joining us today. I'd like to also take the opportunity to thank the TMAC National Board Professional Development team for leadership they have taken putting all the webinars together, including this one. This includes Katrin Sieber, Chair of the National PD Committee, and Tanya Kadikian, member of the PD Committee, and both of whom are joining us today. So we appreciate this opportunity to host this webinar, and we certainly appreciate the hard work of the TMAC National Board Professional Development team. So thanks for being here, guys. On behalf of the Ontario Board, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for coming. It's great to have you here, and I'm looking forward to an informative webinar. And at this time, over to my co-host Liz for some housekeeping.
Hi all, welcome, and we're really glad to see you. On behalf of the National PD Committee, it's really good to see people out. I'm hoping this is going to be a useful seminar for not just media, but also for our industry partners. Just a few housekeeping items. This webinar will be 1 hour long. We've booked 1 hour. Maybe before I start, I could ask everybody to please mute your microphones. We're hearing background noises. So how about everybody mute your microphones right now? Okay, right. Yeah, so this webinar will be 1 hour long. That's our plan, but you know, if we have a lot of questions and need to go over, we're quite happy to do that. We've got some great guests, so you might well have some questions. Note that we are recording the webinar, so save your questions to the end, but we are recording the webinar, so if you have to leave a little earlier for some reason, you'll be able to go back and look at it, okay? I think that's about all I need to say to you right now. If you have questions that you need to put into the chat, please go ahead and do so. I will be monitoring that chat and collecting questions for Wayne, so or for our two other guests. So please put them into chat if you need to. Okay, welcome everybody, and I'm going to pass it back to Rod to introduce our guests.
At this time, it's an honor to introduce the Guelph and Tri-Cities Career Collective. Joining us today are 3 members of the collective, career experts who I have come to deeply respect: Rachel Dupre, Laura Hartnell, and Wayne Greenway. The Guelph and Tri-City Career Collective is a group of independent career professionals who collaborate to help people achieve their career success. Together, they offer a wide variety of specialty services, including resume writing, outplacement, career exploration, and discovery and transition support. I was introduced to this group by a friend, and I have had the opportunity to listen in on many great Zoom calls over the past year, from advice to networking, staying positive, career strategy, resume enhancement, finding direction in the tough job market. The list goes on. I have always found their advice to be solid and informative. So at this time, I think before I butcher it, I'll let our speakers introduce themselves and say a few words about who they are, because I know they can do it better than I can. So Rachel.
Hi,
welcome.
everybody. Thank you so much, Rod. My name is Rachel Dupre, as Rod said, and I am a career coach for Rebels. So I specialize in helping people to bust out of their cubicles or desk jobs and create unconventional careers that really align with who they are. And I'm very excited to be here today.
Thank you, Rachel. And Laura Hartnell.
Hi everyone, thank you Rod for the introduction. I'm Laura of Laura Hartnell Career Transition Services. I am a certified and award-winning resume writer, and I also help my clients with job search strategies. But essentially what I do is I help them to create personal marketing collateral in order to get into their desired positions. And I also do support some small business owners as well to market themselves.
Thank you so much, Laura, for being here. And Wayne Greenway, the floor is yours. Oh, mute.
Unmute.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Rod. I'm Wayne Greenway. I own Career Aviators, and I help clients to find positions in which they excel, they value highly, and love to do. And I work with people from the time I see them every week until they transition into their new role. So I'm really excited to be here and hope we can help your participants with and members with their questions about job search and career finding and career exploration and things like that.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Good to have you, all three of you here. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Alrighty, so to start off today, what I'm going to do is a live audit of Rod, my lovely participant's LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is an incredibly useful tool in today's not only job search, but when it comes to marketing yourself, getting your services, your offerings out into the world, building relationships with the right people, making those really valuable connections. So I'm going to share my screen, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through Rod's profile with him and make some suggestions as to how he can modify it a little bit to make it stand out in a very crowded marketplace. Now, even though I'm going to be interacting with Rod during this audit, the advice that I'm giving to him will be applicable to pretty much anyone else who is listening in, regardless of what your situation is. It's going to be coming from that place of, the questions you should be asking yourselves, the way you should be looking at, who your target audience is and what you have to offer them in order to create really great content that is keyword optimized and highly engaging and is going to get those views on your profile and get people intrigued to click and learn more about you. So let me pull up my screen, and also if you have specific questions, feel free to ask. You can either insert them in the chat box or feel free to pipe up. I'm good either way. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, I'm gonna assume yes, because everyone's muted. I see Wayne's nodding. Okay, great. Okay, so all right, first and foremost, so let's start at the top here. Rod, love your picture. I know we were having some laughs about it before everyone joined in here. When it comes to your profile picture, the most important thing is to smile and look friendly and approachable. Whether we're looking for a job and we're trying to attract employers, or we're trying to attract, that next gig, industry partnerships, whatever it is, you want to have that air of approachableness, right? We don't typically want to do business with people who are very standoffish. We want to do business with people who look warm and inviting. So that's my biggest tip is, you don't have to hire a professional photographer to take a headshot. You can have something that's a little bit more candid and relaxed, but most importantly, look friendly, warm, and inviting. So I'd say the three most important things to have nailed down on your profile are your picture, your banner photo, and your headline. And that's because those are the things people see first. So that's what's going to attract their eye initially to your profile and entice them to want to click on it and read through it in more detail. So headshots definitely important. For banner photos, so what Rod has right now is the generic background. You have this opportunity to create something really eye-catching and something that's very much in line with who you are, what you do, and how you can add value. So the sky's the limit when it comes to these banner photos. Canva is a really fantastic tool that you can use. It's free for anyone to sign up and use. They have, if you just type in LinkedIn, all sorts of different templates you can use in order to create. Of course, my computer's being kind of slow right now, but there's all sorts of different templates you can use in order to create a really great banner photo. Now, I like to look at the templates as a way to give me an idea as to how I want to organize it, but I would definitely always encourage you to, whenever possible, use your own photography and put your own spin on it. Okay, So here we have Rod's headline, Director of Communications at vacay.ca. Now, to me, this looks like it's probably his default headline. And the default headline comes from whatever your current position is at your current company. So lots of people use the default setting, but what I would encourage you to do is think of a creative tagline that kind of encapsulates who you are, what you do, how you add value. This will definitely take some thought. You have to put some time into thinking through this. And the other element you might want to consider is the right keywords, right? So whoever is looking at your profile and sees that headline, they want to know what it is you do, but also what it is that's unique about what you do. So, you know, I've seen lots of really creative ones. You know, for instance, marketing to me is like air to fire or oxygen to fire, right? You can come up with something that's a tagline that really boils down to what it is you do, because in the LinkedIn platform now, it's all about grabbing that person's attention. There's so much out there now, so you want to really do your best to attract the right people. Okay. So definitely take advantage of I think it's 140 characters, the limit you have for your headline. And then the next most important element of your LinkedIn profile is your About section. So see this section here before it gets to see more. This is where you really have to think about great copy and what's going to grab that reader's attention. So you can consider this like your next headline, right? You want that headline to pull them in so they click the see more button. Now, writing in general, when it comes to, I mean, I primarily write resumes. I also write LinkedIn profiles, but when it comes to these platforms and these mediums, you want to make sure that it's easy for whoever's taking a look at your profile to read. So typically I would try not to use too many big blocks of text. I'd say probably four consecutive lines of text is good. Don't exceed that. If you're getting to that point, then stop, make a break, and go to your next thought or your next paragraph. So I read through Rod's earlier today. So he's, you know, highlighting the fact that he's got 20 years of experience writing and editing in the travel industry. He's mentioning that he's the managing partner at vacay.ca. And he's mentioned some of the various places he's worked at. This is all good stuff. But I like to encourage people to tell a really captivating story. So Rod, you know, for you, you've been in writing and editing in the travel industry for 20 plus years. You also say you are a photographer. That's really cool. So what I would want to know is what inspired you to embark on this career path? Like, did you go on a really great trip somewhere? And, you know, what did that feel like for you? How did that get you excited about this as a career path? And tell your story. You know, elaborate on, you know, what is your process when you go into a new destination or whatever it is you're researching in order to write about? Like, what's your process in doing that? Give your audience a little bit more about who you are, what you specialize in, and how you make it unique to you. Because everything you put in your LinkedIn profile, you want to make sure you're crafting it with your specific audience in mind. But you also, you know, you have that opportunity to tell a really neat story about yourself. There are some other really cool ways you can incorporate some eye-catching details in your blocks of text. Typically, so if you're writing in a Word document, you have the ability to use, you know, bolded font or italicized font. We don't really get that opportunity in LinkedIn unless you use something like this as a Unicode text converter. So this will allow you to copy and paste whatever information you want to, say you want to have a little subheading, you know, my travel story or something, what inspired my travel journey. You can have that copied and pasted in here and then pull out the numbers aren't a good example. I'm just going to put my name in and then pull out the text that you want to use for your subheader. Now, if you're using something like this, use it strategically and use it sparingly. You don't want to overdo it because that can be hard on the eyes as well. Other things you could include down at the bottom, and this is a way to incorporate additional keywords, is like areas of specializations. You know, for instance, ghostwriting, editing, copywriting, whatever your areas of specialty are, you can list those out because that will once again help with people who are searching for those specific skills and qualifications that your profile will be more likely to pop up. Keywords are important. It's just one aspect of an overall LinkedIn algorithm that will determine whose profile is going to appear when someone searches for those skills. Okay, so the experience section. So with the experience section, similar to writing a resume, I like to start with kind of a broad, high-level overview as to what you do on a daily basis in order to drive some kind of impact, right? Then from there, you can break it down into, you can do little bulleted points to highlight some of your more notable achievements, things that you're really proud of, and tell like little, I'll call them micro stories. And because LinkedIn is more of a social platform now, you can do this all in first person if you want. Definitely, I didn't mention this before, but for sure, your about section in first person. So you can say I and me or our.
The song influenced the screenplay.
Is someone asking a question?
No, I think someone's got their mic open. Guys, please.
No problem. Yeah, so you can definitely do your about section in first person because you want to talk directly to your audience. I've seen some profiles where people still have that very formal third person bio style. Because LinkedIn is yes, a professional platform, but also a social network, definitely switch that out to the first person perspective. And then you can choose to keep that first person's perspective throughout your experience, or if you want to omit any references to pronouns, that's fine. Either way, just be consistent with however you choose to do it. But typically, high-level overview as to what it is you do, and then you can break that down into some little micro stories about what you're proud of and what you've accomplished in those specific roles. So carry that on through your different experience sections. You've got, how far is it going back? So 1995 to 1999, if you're going to include older experiences, that's absolutely fine, especially if you're kind of signaling at the beginning of your profile that you have over 20 years, you want to show longevity in the industry, you've been around to see various changes, that's great. But like Rod's already doing here, you don't need to really add a lot of detail when those experiences go back that far. I'd say for the most part, you want to highlight the most recent 5 to 10 years of experience because that's going to be most relevant to your average person reading through your profile. And then education, volunteer experience, all this stuff is really great to include. You can add various skills, which you don't have, Rod. Okay, so here's another way you can add keywords to your resume. Or sorry, to your LinkedIn profile is the skills section. And what I always do when I'm working with a client is when you start to type something in, it will pre-populate different options. So I always go with something that's pre-populated because what that tells me is it's something that's commonly searched for. So, you know, think of all the different keywords that someone in your industry might be using in order to find someone just like you to write on, you know, their publication or to hire you for whatever it is they're looking for. Think through all those different keywords and then try to include those in your skills section. You have 50 skills that you can include in this area, and you have the ability to pin 3. So choose 3 that are most important because those are the ones that are going to get those like click for endorsements. So choose the 3 that are most relevant to what you want. Also, don't be afraid to ask for recommendations. People love social proof. It's like you Google a product or a service, you want to see what everyone else thinks of it. So you look at those reviews. No different here on LinkedIn. And there's certainly nothing wrong with asking for recommendations. And you can be very specific and say, hey, do you mind talking about that time when I helped with XYZ? Because that can be very helpful to the person who has to write your recommendation. Okay, and then of course, interests are great. Anything that you are interested in following, definitely click that follow button. And by just click on one. So any organization that you want to get information about, see job, maybe contract work from, anything like that, industry news, click the follow button. That shows that you're genuinely interested in them. In case you do have an opportunity to collaborate with them on something, they want to know that you're actually invested in what they have to do and say. So definitely follow anybody of interest to you, and that will be very helpful. Now, that's like the really quick overview. Of course, there's a lot of different other elements to LinkedIn that we can discuss if you want to get into it. One quick other additional thing that I will mention, it's not on the desktop version, but on your phone, right next to your name, if you're on your LinkedIn app on your phone, there's a little button for you to record your name. And I definitely would advise people to do this. Hold the button down, record saying your name, and that way, when someone goes on your profile, they can click that button and they can hear you saying your name. And I know this seems like just such a minor thing, but I have heard sometimes that recruiters, or it could be a potential industry partner, they will avoid making a call to somebody because they're afraid of mispronouncing their name, which I think is ridiculous. You can just easily go on Google and type in name pronounce and find out how to pronounce anyone's name. But do this so they don't even have to look for it. They can just click it, listen to your name, and then that alleviates some anxiety about trying to call and pronounce that person's name. You don't want to miss an opportunity just because they're afraid of pronouncing your name incorrectly. Okay, so I'm gonna end the share, and then we can go into some questions because I'm sure there's some questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for that and for being kind to me. My friend James Ross here just says, "Hey, Rod, you have no skills." So he took an opportunity to take a dig. Liz will be quarterbacking our questions. So if you have questions, Liz, go ahead.
Well, we don't have any yet, but we have some from the original message that was sent. And people did send us some questions. And I'm just wondering if under LinkedIn, we could include something about creating career diversity to cushion your income during this time. Is there a way to create, to kind of indicate that you want to expand your career? Because what this thing does is it basically says what you've done. Is there a way in LinkedIn to kind of say, I want to move out from this?
Yeah, so it gets a little bit more complex when you are kind of straddling different industries and different potential side gigs and job opportunities. Because LinkedIn, based on its algorithms and its categories, it kind of wants you to stay tunnel visioned on one thing. It makes you choose what industry you're in those drop-down menu options. So I would say for the most part, whenever you're filling out that base information, fill it out, tailoring it to your primary area of interest. But for those of us who are multi-passionate, as I'm sure Rachel will get into, because she's the queen of that, you want to make sure your audience knows, you're not a one-trick pony. You like to engage in a variety of different work, and that you have multiple skills, not just, some people are very focused, and that's great. A niche can be very beneficial to marketing yourself, but it's not for everyone. So one way you can do this is through the way that you tell your story. So this is very different to the situation of most people here, but I'll share a recent example, is that I worked with a guy who had spent 15 years as an electrician and who wanted to get more into coding, because for those past 15 years, he tinkered, I called it tinkering with intent, on anything with wires or computers. And so we told this story about how he was an electrician by day and a coder by night. And it incorporated both worlds, but in this very beautiful way, because nothing operates in a silo, right? So there were really great examples of teamwork that he'd used from his electrical days working on big projects that we were able to pull into, well, how is that relevant in the coding world? You have to collaborate with programmers and business analysts and all these other people, right? And the clients. So there's definitely ways to do that. I would just encourage you to get very creative about how you see all those elements coming together.
Okay, and somebody's asking about the 50+ crowd putting dates on experience. Is there an issue there?
I'll start off, but I'm sure everyone else can chime in on this one. Yeah, ageism is a real thing. I never put dates on resumes or LinkedIn profiles on anything to do with education. I just don't think it's relevant. If you have the degree, you have it. Doesn't really matter when you received it. Now, for your experience on a resume and on LinkedIn, you will have to put your date range. But like I said earlier, most employers are really only interested in the most recent, I'm going to say 5 to 15 years of experience. So if you're going back past 15, 20 years of experience, you don't need to get into that, those details. You don't even have to include it on your profile if you don't want to. And then the other thing too is how you're presenting yourself. So of course, you want to tell your story in a way that's captivating and engaging and gets people's attention and demonstrates, not just says I'm passionate or enthusiastic, but demonstrates that you're passionate or enthusiastic about those topics, but also not only your writing, but also your picture. Do you look happy and upbeat? Are you keeping up with the latest trends in technology and within the industry? These are things that can really help you to fight against age bias.
Yeah, I have a few older clients, and ageism is real, but like Laura says, it's how you see yourself, and I guess how up to date you've kept yourself. If you're staying up to date, if you're doing little workshops on new trends, if you're keeping up to date with your skills, and you can show that, especially if you can show it in your more recent experiences, that really helps a lot. The second thing is that I'll tell you the story of a day I had. It was in my first or second year of practice. I went to see a client early in the morning, and she was an older client and had a wealth of experience. Like, she had set up all kinds of projects in another country, and had a lot of successes. But she was having a lot of difficulty. She'd been here a couple of years and had a lot of difficulty finding a job. Her English was fine, so that wasn't a barrier. And so she said to me, I applied for that job just a few weeks ago, and do you know who they hired? And I said, who? And she said they hired a young person. That they're always hiring these young people who have all this knowledge that I just don't have the newest information. Well, actually, she really did when you looked at the things she'd done. But in the same day, in the afternoon, I saw a young client who just graduated from university. And honestly, I wish I could have a video of the two side by side, because the conversation was almost the same. This fellow said, you know what? These old people are always getting the jobs. I don't have any career related experience, and I just lose out every time. And so, you know, it's the position you see yourself in. And a lot of employers want an older client because they have all of those different experiences they've seen, and or they want to hire an older person because they've seen those different experiences. And I actually have a friend who's 68, and he lost his entire business, and he had to re-intention himself, and he got a job as a vice president of digital marketing because he had kept up with his skills. He did some courses and got up to skills, but the reason they wanted him was that he was able to take a lot of the ideas that the young people in the company had. They had these awesome ideas, but they just hadn't thought of all the steps and all the possible potholes. And so his job was basically to help the younger people take their ideas and coach them into making them into solid, workable solutions. So I know I took us off track a little bit, but it is an issue that as often comes up, and I wanted to mention it.
Okay, did you want to add something, Rachel, or?
Sure, I would just say that relevance is also important to keep in mind as well. So whatever it is that you are applying for, you know, resume best practices is that it should only be a certain length in terms of number of pages anyway. So you don't feel like you need to include all of your experience there. Include what's relevant for the position that you are applying for. And I think, Laura, you've mentioned in previous workshops that we've done together about like having like pools of like having a document where you have all the different jobs you've done and having that separate. And then when you want to draw from it, you just pull the different positions that are relevant to what you're applying for. And so you end up essentially with multiple resumes for multiple different industries that you could apply for based on the skill sets that you've acquired throughout your career. So don't feel like you have to include experience back 30 years if it's not relevant. But if it is relevant, then definitely include it on there, because if you have a lot of experience in an industry, it will give you that leg up because you have all of that experience that a lot of other candidates won't. So think about how it's about thinking about how you want it to be, that when somebody is reading your resume, like if it's a position where it's a senior position and they want someone with a lot of experience, show all of your experience because that's what they're looking for. Whereas if it's an entry-level type of position or you're looking to change industries and pivot, then don't feel like you need to go back 20 or 30 years because that's not what's required for the position that you're applying for.
Great. John Geary is asking, what's the difference between LinkedIn Basic and LinkedIn Premium? Is it worth the money to pay for the premium, and why? I guess that would be Laura.
Sure. Yeah, I get this question a lot. Okay, so there are a few differences between LinkedIn Basic and Premium. The ones that I notice the most are your ability to have a wider search radius. So LinkedIn will cap the amount of people that you can search. I think it's like 1,000 a month or something. I can't remember. You can only search for and then connect with so many people every month. So with the premium, it bumps that up. So you now have more ability to conduct filtered searches to find specific people with specific titles at specific companies. I'm always teaching people how to cold contact as a job search strategy, and it would be no different for people trying to formulate partnerships or get different writing gigs. So that if you're doing a lot of filtered searches, that can be beneficial. It also will give you, I think it's 15 in-mail credits per month. And what can be beneficial about the in-mail credits is that you have a very limited amount of room when you send a connection request to put something, a little bit more personal about yourself or, what it is you want to achieve from connecting with that person. So an in-mail request gives you basically unlimited. I would still keep it short and sweet and to the point, but you have a lot more room in order to express yourself in that first introductory message. And unlike regular messages, with the premium inbox messaging, it will actually show up in the person's email. It will show up what you've written instead of just notifying you Rod messaged you on LinkedIn, but I can't see his message, it will say Rod messaged you on LinkedIn, and I can read in my email what you've in my actual email what you've written. So what I always recommend to people is, if you want to give it a try, I say go for it. You can do a 1 month trial for free, but definitely mark on your calendar when that trial ends. And if you're not making good use out of it, then cancel it, because otherwise it'll just keep billing you. Because to get the free trial, you have to put your credit card information in. And I've learned this the hard way, because I always forget about these things. So I've learned my lesson. I've paid for a lot of free trials over the years. So I think if it's something that you make good use out of, it's worth the investment. But if you try it and you find it's not really, you're not making good use out of it, you're not getting the results that you were hoping for, then I think you can achieve the same or similar results without it.
Great. There's a question that was sent to us in advance, and it was about how do you build better relationships with editors and potential, I presume for industry, potential places that you might be representing. How do you build those relationships?
I'll take a crack at that one. Not many people like the word networking. In fact, I call it field research. It sounds nicer, has less negative connotations. But networking is your way to go, and there's different ways to do it. But what I suggest to clients is that you make a list of because you're not usually going to. And the writing industry might be different, but you're not usually going to be able to connect that easily with the people who are going to hire you. But the people who are below that person can introduce you to the person who's gonna do hiring a lot easier, and the conversation's likely going to go better. So as I say, there's different ways of doing it. But what I have clients do is I have clients identify 15 to 40 people who are in their industry, who are working in the kinds of companies or areas that they want to work with. And what you do is you send an email, and you're not sending the email to find a job. You're sending an email to build a relationship with people who are doing the same kind of work as you do with that company. And your email is going to just simply say your pitch, that kind of like what you've got in LinkedIn, how you're connected to what they're interested in. And you're going to ask if you can have a short conversation with them about what they're doing. And you're going to phone them, have a conversation with them. Hopefully they say yes. But you send out a lot of requests to get yeses, and have a conversation with that person about what they're doing, what they're interested in, what they've, I don't know, in the writing industry, but what they're writing about maybe, or different skills that they're using, or techniques, or anything that you can see that you share an interest in. And what you want to do is build the relationship on something that's shared interest. Once you've had that conversation, then you can ask them about how they work for that organization or for that person that you eventually want to get connected to. And you can if the conversation has gone well, and it might take more than one conversation, it might take 2 or 3, but you can then say, would you feel comfortable introducing me to whoever it is who's above that person who you want to talk to? And so it's a slow process, but it works depending on the kind of jobs you're going after. If you're applying online to jobs and you're cold, and it's like they don't know you, you've got about an 8% chance of getting an interview or a chance to speak with the hiring manager about a particular role that they want to hire for. Whereas this way, if you get introduced by somebody who is connected to that person, then your chances of having a good conversation, and you can then say in the email, you know, John Smith suggested that I get in touch with you, and I'm be very interested, and you can do your little pitch in the email. I'd be very interested in talking to you about opportunities that might become available. Chances are you're going to get a conversation with the person because John Smith has suggested that you talk with them. So while it seems like a slower process, and it is a lot of work, but what you end up doing is having a network of people who of shared interests, a community of shared interests, who you can call upon as you're wanting connections to different people for different reasons. And when you land a position or you land a role and you need some help, you've also got that network to call upon to ask for advice or suggestions.
Great. Anyone else? Yeah.
Just to add to that, nurturing, and Wayne, you alluded to this a little bit, but nurturing those connections is very important. And a lot of people, when they reach out with interest in working for somebody or even working as a freelancer for somebody, there's this, because you're in the position where you want to work with them or for them, you immediately want to go into a pitch. But in a lot of cases, the best thing to do is to, like Wayne said, like have a more casual type of conversation first, where you're not asking for anything other than their time and maybe some information that they have that you're interested in, and then continue checking in with them, following up. Like that's how you build a network, and not just a list of connections on LinkedIn that you don't know. Is you want to continue following up with people and checking in with people, because especially if you're working in like the freelance capacity, you're going to be connecting with people constantly, and you're going to always be looking for new opportunities and new work. And a lot of how you're going to find that is through other people. So you need to keep nurturing that network, so that as soon as you have capacity to take on more freelance jobs again, you can reach out to that network again and just say like, hey, I've got some more bandwidth. Do you happen to know anybody? And it won't feel weird for you to be reaching out to them because you just talked to them a couple of weeks ago, right? It's just like a friendship, right? Like when you have a friendship or where someone texts you every once in a while, like, hey, how's it going? Like it feels like a good friendship. But when you only get a text messages from them like once every 3 years, and they need your truck because they're moving, that doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like you're getting a whole lot out of it. So think of it from the same perspective when you're building relationships in your network. Like, how would I want people to connect with and ask me for opportunities or ask me for connections? And then what feels good for you is generally going to feel good for other people. So try that self-reflection and then putting some of those practices into play.
And it definitely gets easier over time. I remember like back, oh my gosh, when I first had LinkedIn and I wanted to start doing my resume writing business, I was so scared to put myself out there and like start commenting on people's posts and sharing my own, sharing people's posts and whatnot, engaging on the platform. But visibility is key. You can create these really great relationships over time by simply engaging with other people in your industry on LinkedIn or even forums that are part of like different industry associations you might be a part of. People read, they might not even be participating, but they're reading. And if they see your name and they see you keep offering great insights, then when they do need somebody to call on for a particular gig, they'll think of you. And I mean, when I first started my business, I connected with other career coaches. And then when they posted something that resonated, I would comment on it. So comments turned into private messaging, which turned into let's have a coffee together, which has now turned into mutual referrals for business. So it can definitely snowball, and it doesn't have to be scary.
There's a couple other things I just thought of. Was one little trick that a few clients have found helpful is if you're taking courses or little workshops or webinars, it often like on this one, it often lists the names of the people who are on that webinar. And if you see somebody on there who is talking about things that you have an interest in, or who's an interest, write their name down and send them a LinkedIn request saying, I was on the same webinar as you were, and I'm very interested in what you mentioned about da, 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 da. and see if you can build a connection there. Same thing with online conferences. You can do that as well. And one client said to me, you know what I do with online client conferences and webinars? I look for the people who ask the most questions, because I figure they're extroverts and they're more likely to say yes to me. I don't know if that's true or not, but she finds that it works really well. And also the other thing I was thinking of was giving to get. I know it's not a very nice thing to say. It's not what we're taught as little kids, but it works. And so if you make a connection with somebody and you've learned something that they're interested in, and you happen to see an article that has just come out that pertains to what they're interested in, then send it to them. Or if you can, in our business, you refer a client to them that maybe you can't help, but they can. And so because it makes people feel good when you do that, and they're also gonna then reciprocate. They don't have to, but they're likely to reciprocate, and it strengthens the friendship or the relationship.
Well, relating to all of that, those are all really good tips. Relating to all of that, though, is someone has asked, how do you know if you need more training or education, or, you know, perhaps do you need to do something? I think most of us, certainly me, I'm constantly trying to keep up with technology and with what's going on in the world around me. And I think most of us are in that same boat. But I mean, should we be taking courses? Should we be, I mean, I'm not sure how to even ask the question at this point, but somebody has asked it. So here you are.
Well, one question sorry, Wayne.
Go ahead, Laura.
One question I always ask my clients when I'm helping them to create their personal brand, I ask a ton of questions before I even start drafting their resumes. And one of the questions I'll ask is, where do you see your industry or function within the next 5 years? And how are you especially poised to lead during that shift? So, you know, it's important to keep on top of trends, and it's really important to also be looking ahead to try to think, okay, what's coming next and how can I prepare myself for that? Now, if you're in a traditional job search, it gets a little easier to identify where your skills might be lacking, because you'll see certain things coming up in job ads and you'll think, oh, I don't have that. I better look into that, and I better figure out what that's all about. And in most cases, you don't need to take a particular course, a paid course. In a lot of cases, School of YouTube is very helpful, and don't be afraid to talk about self-directed learning or books that you've read that have helped you to, you know, shape different philosophies that help you in your work life. All of that stuff is definitely relevant, applicable, and helpful. So anyways, that's my 2 cents.
The other thing I like to mention is that I get a fair number of clients who have convinced themselves that they need to go back to university, or they need to go back for an extended program. And like Rachel, she's going, no. And I agree. You know, I find that almost all the clients I have, you know, as long as their direction is related to their past successes in some ways, there's really not a lot of benefit in going back to school to do a degree. You'd be probably better trying to even volunteer to get some experience in that area, or see if you could do a project with somebody. I just had a client who I connected her with somebody else that I know. And we were sort of celebrating yesterday because she wants to transition into his line of work, and she does something related, but not exactly. And she had this really nice informational interview or field research meeting or networking meeting with him. And she got up the nerve and said, would you be willing to let me co-facilitate a new workshop that you might be working on in this particular area? And he said yes. So, you know, that experience for somebody like that is worth 1,000 times what a university course would be. And you have to watch. We have this thing called our thinking mind, and I won't go into detail about it, but it tries to protect us from taking any kind of risks. And a lot of times going back to school can feel really safe in comparison to pursuing the job search in the direction you really want to do. But at the end of that 2-year university or college course, the person is often in the same position as they were before they started, and the thinking mind's telling them they should go back and take another course, or they should change direction. Or so you want to be really careful before you start going back to school for things. Try to use the strengths you have. Try to get career-related experience in the thing that you want to pivot into, or the area of your work that you really want to try out, and that will take you way further ahead than more courses. But as Laura was saying, though, the ones that are good are those like 2-day workshops, or things that you can sign up on the newest thing in your field, or a new skill that you can learn. Those are ideal. And I even have clients put self-directed learning, if they've done a lot of that, as a category on their resume. And it looks really impressive, because if they have 3 or 4 of the newest things under there that they've done, that shows that they're up to date and that they've got great skills that they're going to bring to the employer.
I couldn't agree more with both of you, what you've said. As a general rule of thumb, I always say, like, always be learning. ABL acronym, always be learning. Because if you're not learning, then you're stagnant, and humans were just not designed to be stagnant beings. So learning is critically important to professional growth, but also personal growth. But also in the world that we live in now, it's very easy to get shiny object syndrome, because there's so many things you can learn at any given time. So this is where, going back to those field research conversations, they can be incredibly valuable, because if there's something that you want to be doing, or if there's somebody who is farther ahead in their career and you really admire where they are and what they're doing, reach out to them and talk to them and ask them how they got to where they are, and ask them, like, did you take any courses? Did you take any credentials to get to this place? Because they're going to give you that inside scoop on what they did that helped them. And it helps to cut through the noise, because if you have enough of these field research conversations, you'll start to notice that they likely are taking similar types of courses, or they're learning similar types of things. And it'll help you to kind of focus in on the good quality courses that are out there, or the good quality programs or workshops or webinars that exist out there that are going to further you than if you maybe tried to navigate it on your own. Because almost any type of learning that you want to do now, there's like 300 people offering to teach you about the same thing. So how do you know which ones to learn from? And this is where that word of mouth, that referral from somebody else saying, yeah, I took this course and it was incredible, it's worth the investment. And immediately after I took this course, I started getting all these other opportunities on my plate. So don't be afraid to ask other people, like, how did you get there? What did you do? What did you take? What courses have you enrolled in, to find out how you might be able to follow similarly in someone's footsteps. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can model what you do after what other people have done.
Somebody's asked, is it important to join new social media platforms such as Clubhouse? Anyone aware of that even?
There's been a lot of talk about Clubhouse these days. It's quite popular. I haven't actually tried it. It's very exclusive. You have to be invited to use it by other people who are on the platform, but it's like a discussion-based platform, which is kind of neat. Like I said, haven't had a chance to try it out yet. If you're in social media, if that is like the job you're doing, then I'd say, yeah, it's probably really important to check out and experiment with new types of social media. But for the average person, I say work with what works for you. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, but I pretty much stick solely to LinkedIn, because that's where I get the most use out of social media engagement, right? There's people looking for work on there, so it makes sense. And I'm able to share my knowledge and engage in different conversations that are useful. However, that's not to say that you can't get jobs from other social media. I've known people in HR, in marketing, and all sorts of different jobs who've gotten fantastic positions from their Twitter presence, their Instagram presence, even their TikTok presence. So if you like the platform, if you find that it's useful to you, then go all in on that platform and make the most out of maybe one or two, as opposed to trying to spread yourself out too thin. Because then, I don't know, if you're anything like me, you get like total social media burnout.
Yeah. And also remember too that each social media platform is designed to share information in a different way. So that's really almost the only distinguishing difference between them, is that they, like, Twitter likes to share information in short snippets of 240 characters or less. Instagram is an image forward platform. Facebook is a text forward platform. So when you think about how the different like what their angle is, but then also think about what you do. So if you are a photographer, Instagram is going to be your best friend because it is an image forward platform. Whereas if you are a writer and you really love writing, but images aren't really your forte, then somewhere like Facebook or LinkedIn might be better because they're text forward platforms. Or you might really enjoy being on somewhere like Clubhouse because there's it's more of like a words based thing as opposed to photo. So think about like what you do and how you like to communicate, because like Laura said, that's what's going to make you enjoy those platforms. And when you enjoy using a platform, you're going to show up as your best self on those platforms. You're going to be consistent. You're going to want to be there when you're on there. So it's not about being everywhere. It's about being where is going to benefit you best and showing up there consistently.
Sorry, carry on.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that Pamela McNaughton has indicated that she has 3 invites to give out on Clubhouse, and Susie Doiselle has offered to, thanks Susie, to give people an invitation. Just message her. So there you go. Sorry, carry on, Wayne.
Oh, I was just going to mention, I have one client is really into Clubhouse, and she raves about it. I think it's going to be her platform, and she's actually just given a presentation on Clubhouse, and she says that she tracks who's in the, I don't know how it works, but who's in the Clubhouse and gets in touch with them, and she's had a lot of networking meetings through it. So she speaks highly of it, but that's the limit of my exposure to it to date.
Okay, well, we don't seem to have too many other questions coming up. By the way, Clubhouse is an iPhone specific app at the moment, but apparently Android is planning to launch it shortly. So, so keep an eye out on that. I think we don't seem to have too much. I just would like to wrap up if we could, but I wonder if I could give each of the 3 of you 2 minutes to just talk about the term your brand, because all 3 of you have mentioned that. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what that means to you, because I think all of us are busy trying to maintain our own brand. What does that mean to you for us to do that?
I guess I'll kick it off. Well, when I work with my clients, now I'm going to focus this on like a career brand, because that's ideally what my clients come to me for help with. It's not, of course I ask them a ton of questions about projects they've worked on and achievements they've had throughout their career, what they felt really proud of, what they value highly in their career, what kind of cultures they want to be a part of, what makes them feel good. So I ask a lot of questions, and I also want to get to know that person's personality, because how you show up, how you interact with the people around you, that is a really important part of your brand. And I think that that's it's important to ask yourselves not only about the technical elements of your job and what you do, but like the bigger picture, how your personality, how your values, how that all comes into play.
Any other?
Wayne, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go?
You can go, sure.
So brand, it's, I originally went to school for business. So my first experience with brand was all around like company brands, but it's just eked its way into just being everybody is a brand. Now we're not people, we're brands, which I have some feelings around because I just think it puts a lot of pressure on people to be not who they are. And this is the trouble. This is a challenge for a lot of people. So if I could give any piece of advice around branding, whether it's branding from a business perspective or branding from a personal brand perspective or a career brand perspective, is be authentic, because a brand is a long-term investment into a way that you speak, a certain set of colors. It's the way that you show up and present yourself. It's all of those things. And it's a long-term commitment. So if it isn't authentically aligned with who you are, it will be utterly exhausting to keep it up. So before you decide to put a brand out there in whatever capacity that looks like, do a lot of self-discovery and self-exploration. How do you talk? Press record on your phone while you're having a conversation with somebody. Listen to the words that you use. Look through your wardrobe. What are the colors that you typically wear? What's your style? Like, think about those elements. Think about what makes you feel good. What are your passions? What are your hobbies? What are your interests? And figure out a way to incorporate all of those things into that brand. Because if you try to push those things aside, or you try to be like, yeah, I'm this, when you're not that, it's going to be very, very challenging to keep up with it. Like, you can see behind me on my shelves, like, I love Pixar, so I've got my Pixar stuffies and stuff like that. Like, that's part of who I am as a person. And so it has made its way into my brand because those are things that I love. So don't take the person out of the brand. Make sure that you are an active part of the brand and who you are, and not just this thing that you create in Canva a few times a week, but it's not who you are. So be authentic. Be authentic is my number one tip.
And I'd agree with everything that Laura and Rachel says. I think that probably what I stress is I have people write what's called a career statement. And I guess what that would be is by the time they finish it, it's really their brand. But I don't use like Laura, I don't use the word brand. I keep thinking of a box of cornflakes when people tell me that they're brand. So I just stay away from it just for my own personal reasons. But I think one of the things that's really important in figuring that out is to really do a careful self-exploration, because one of the things that I think is really important is to know what you value. Because your values, for the ideal position, you're going to identify your top strengths, and it's your values that are going to drive those strengths forward. And if you know what your deepest core values are and what you stand for in life. A good little trick is to say to yourself, what do I stand for? And answer a question. Then say, what do I stand for? And keep asking, keep drilling down until you get to some nuggets that are really important to you. And it's those kinds of things that are likely going to be the best drivers of your strengths. If you can find a role or a position that you're using your top strengths and those values are driving those strengths, then you're going to be headed in the right direction, or you're going to be writing the right kind of articles, or you're going to be doing the right kind of work. So that would be my suggestion on branding.
Okay, Rod, thank you. Rod, I'm going to let you take this away then.
All right, everyone. So I'm going to wrap it up. So once again, a huge thanks to our speakers, Wayne, Laura, and Rachel, for an outstanding job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a pleasure to have you join us, and we appreciate you. And just so you all know, every Thursday at 7 p.m., the Guelph and Tri-Cities Career Collective run an online event called Career Zoom-In, where they feature different aspects of career searches and career enhancement and different things. If you guys want to put that link into the chat box for anyone or we can maybe forward that link to anyone who is here. You can do that. But yeah, it's a really wonderful session. It would be great if we could ask you guys, if you like the speakers, yeah, please just promote them. They do really good work. They help a lot of people, and they're dedicated to helping people enhance their careers, find opportunities, and grow their experiences. So please consider supporting them. Again, special thanks to the TMAC National Board Professional Development Committee for your commitment to education. And speaking for this host, thank you for my co-host, Liz. You were great. And of course, thanks to all of you for joining us today. And Liz?
Don't forget to fill in the post-event questionnaires, please, because that helps us. And if any of you have any suggestions for future seminars or PD webinars, please let us know. You can let Katrin know or myself. Anyone on the PD committee is really going to be happy to chat with you and look at some options, because we're trying to make your TMAC membership worthwhile, and we're offering webinars every month. So keep in touch and let us know what you think is important. Is there anything you want to add, Katrin?
No, that was a great session. Thank you so much to our speakers and our hosts, and thanks for the collaboration, Ontario Board. It was a real pleasure, and special thanks to all of the TMACers who make our PD session such a success. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a good afternoon, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.